Hello, everybody. Lance Sussman from Gratz College, and welcome to week two. Week one was very exciting, a little bit unwieldy, but that's okay because we were basically trying to get to know one another, and I was very happy because of the intensity of the discussion, but feel at this point all of us will be a little more focus. It was kind of just a warm-up session. In terms of tests and all, don't worry about the randomness of the first week because all exams are open note and open book, and you can be able to access everything. Particularly at the graduate level, I am much more concerned about thinking and analysis than I am simply recalling facts. So we're in good shape, in my opinion, in terms of everybody checking in and participating. Clearly, we do have a very diverse class, very thoughtful, and I like so much that many of you know each other and are welcoming. For those who are just getting used to the process, understand that I'm in the same position you are. This is all very new to me in terms of the technology. Hopefully I'm a little better in content, and I'm hoping that my technology skills will increase thanks to the good people here at Gratz during the course of the semester. Now, looking ahead, before we even get into this week's content, I just want to make mention of the fact that your first writing assignment will be coming up. That'll be due on February the 6th. This is a prospectus for your term paper, so you do need to be thinking about a topic for your term paper and make sure that it is feasible. If you want to write about the Holocaust in Poland, that's great, but it's too big a topic. You have to have a topic that is manageable in the context of a course, and also, of course, a topic that has available source materials, because if you find a topic and everything is embedded into Bulgarian and you don't read Bulgarian, well, not much you can do about it. So we're looking for feasible topics, hopefully topics that are of vital interest to you, things that you have longed to explore more thoroughly, and this is a good opportunity to do so. As for the prospectus itself, it's 2 pages long, and it should include the following items: a working title, a definition of scope, that is what years and geography, things like that, different intellectual categories that you'll be looking at. Very importantly, a thesis. A thesis is an idea, it's a hypothesis, it's a question which you hope to address and answer one way or another in your work. So for example, related to Holocaust, which so many of you have interest in, you could ask the following or make the following statement. This is not my opinion, I'm simply giving it as a thesis, that Hitler knew in advance what he was going to do to the Jews. That's a thesis. Another thesis would state that the Holocaust was a function of the conditions of war and emerged over time and was not foreseen. Those are opposite viewpoints. And then your role as historian, aka term paper writer, is to make the argument that you understand it better than others. So the articulation of a thesis is very important. Sometimes it's the hardest part of a project, is to get one's thinking right. And we can spend plenty of time together working on that. Finally, the third part of your bibliography should be a working bibliography. I realize at this point it won't be complete. There is no such thing as a maximum number of sources so far as I'm concerned. It would seem to me you would want 5 or more sources as a minimum. Web sources are fine. Just check as to how they should be cited. We're going to be using the Chicago Manual of Style. The other assignment that'll be due on February the 6th is the title of the book that you will be reviewing. That won't be due until February the 20th, and at this point all we need is the name of the author and the title. The book should be what's called secondary literature, not primary literature, that it is a book written by a historian about events past, and not a primary document like a memoir or a published collection of letters, even a diary. Those are primary documents. We're dealing with historiographical issues in this class, and therefore it's very important to get used to learning how to read and deconstruct the craft of writing historically. And that's part of what a book review is all about. More of that in the days to come. Looking way down the line, there is a paper that will be only 4 pages that'll be due on February 27th, and that will be any topic of your choosing of Jewish history 1492 to 1880. And we'll be reserving our session on March the 3rd to share our work and figure out a mechanism for that in the days ahead. Please make sure that you read the prompt for this class. It's under Forum, and the reading is pretty simple for this time. Hallow, pages 174 to the end of chapter 8 is the reading. In Mendes Fleur, the reader of documents, you might want to look at the book introduction. It's only 4 pages, pages 3 to 7. So that's what we have to work on in terms of assignments for the mid and long term. Now, today and for this week, we're going to be talking just briefly about Spain and the expulsion from Spain and Portugal, a little bit on the Renaissance, and then just a little bit on the Protestant Reformation. These are the great events beginning at the end of the 15th century, primarily in Western Europe, that will affect European history and indeed world history. It's a little bit ironic. So much of the historical effort today is to avoid Eurocentrism. This is entirely basically Eurocentric, but it does not mean that we won't consider it even in a more global context. A significant part of the Jewish experience in these years, particularly the 1500s, and all Jewish history since up to the present day, are affected and shaped by what happened in 1492 and beyond. Now, we had touched on in our forum discussion this question of modernity, and indeed it is a bit of a frustrating topic, like so many big topics are. They're highly nuanced. I would like to say at the outset that a central function of history writing and the historian is to create units of time, meaningful units of time we would call periods. In order to create a period like the colonial period in American history or the progressive period in American history, we have to consider first and foremost the discontinuities, different than, let's say, the kind of talk you hear inside of the Jewish community today, which wants to emphasize continuity over time. The job of the historian in creating periods is to emphasize the continuities. And in picking 1492, clearly we can say that the great discontinuity between 1492, 1493, 1494, and beyond, from what preceded it, is the fact that the Iberian Jewish community, Spanish and then Portuguese a few years later, was effectively demolished by the Inquisition and its tribunals, and by the Spanish monarchy. Spain had been one of the great centers of Jewish life. That community was now disassembled, its population either destroyed or sent into diaspora to create new communities under other national and geographic conditions. So it is this destruction of the Iberian Jewish experience and the forced migrations that follows that are the first of the discontinuities. Important to remember, it hadn't been that much earlier, really only a century and a half earlier, that there had also been movement of Jews out of Central Europe, particularly Germany, and into Poland. In Germany, you had a crystallization of Jewish culture around the year 1000, and that became known as the land of Ashkenaz, where Yiddish became, or Judeo-German in its earliest phase, was the primary linguistic vehicle for Jewish culture. And in Spain, we have Ladino, formed of a combination of Hebrew and Iberian language. Both of these will be transported to the east. Poland, Lithuania will become the center of Yiddish, Ashkenazic culture, and Ladino will sweep across the Sephardi world, although it will superimpose itself on communities that already exist in North Africa and other places. Some of you pointed out the importance of the invention of printing during this period. It's hard to exaggerate how important printing has been in the shaping of human culture. I remember 13 years ago, excuse me, when we moved into the 21st century, and journals like Newsweek and Time were asking questions. What were the 10 greatest inventions which have shaped world history over the last 1,000 years? And invariably, printing came up as number one. Printing is so important because it enables people to store and transmit knowledge in a radically increased way that simply didn't exist before. It democratizes learning, in that now vast populations ultimately can get copies of literature, and not just the precious few who can receive copies that are handwritten by scribes. So printing is remarkably important. In terms of Jewish history, printing transforms Judaism. Instead of having one scribal siddur, one scribal prayer book for an entire community or synagogue, now everybody can have a book in front of them. Furthermore, if you wanted to add a poem, a piyut or something like that, to your minhag, to your local custom, it was now easy to do so, and so you have this effect of printing increasing the practice of tradition itself. One of the ironies of the printing revolution in Jewish history is that early Jewish printing was pioneered not by a Jew, but by a Gentile, Daniel Bamberg, in Venice, who invented his own font, which is called Rashi font, although I think ultimately it was based on a Yemenite script. And he used a layout which put the central text, whether it was Talmudic or biblical, in the middle of the page with commentaries all around it. And in fact, that layout became identified with, quote, traditional Jewish culture, although it was actually contemporaneous in the 16th century and was used in the church as well as other places. Even more importantly, you have this little explosion of information that begins to go all the way across the Jewish world, shaping and reshaping it from the inside and out. Next, as our textbook points out, the amount of knowledge, in part carried by the printing revolution from outside of the Jewish community, also increases exponentially, particularly in the area of scientific knowledge, as telescopes and microscopes and other things are refined. Scientific knowledge begins to increase, and eventually will challenge many doctrines held by Christianity and by extension Judaism, based on a biblical and theocentric worldview. Theocentric, of course, meaning God-centric. And if there is a characteristic to modernity, it is a shift from theocentrism to anthropocentrism, that the human being begins to take center stage. There are also political changes that take place with the rise of absolute states, reconfiguration of multi-nation empires, an important change in the concept of wealth. Whereas in the feudal period, wealth was directly tied to land ownership, in the period under consideration with mercantilism as a prelude to capitalism, the value of liquid wealth, first in the form of gold, and then ultimately promissory notes and money and things of that nature, begins to become much more important, and will affect Jews in particular, in that Jews had been stripped of the right to own land in a significant way, both among Christians as well as among Muslims. And now that things were moving in the direction of liquid wealth as the real marker of wealth, Jews found themselves in an enhanced position to do business. As is always the case in Jewish history, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, they say in Hebrew, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. So that Jews had been pushed into certain types of economic activity in West Europe as punishment for the crime of deicide, for the crime of killing God, and assigned the task of loaning money, usury, the word Jew itself becoming a verb. And now that becomes a positive and valued exercise, financial exercise among the new emerging governments, all of a sudden they say, look, Jews are in the way. Much later in the 19th century, the Jewish-born German poet remarked, his name was Heinrich Heine, and he remarked, first they cripple the Jew, and then they blame him or tease him for limping. So in this case, first they force the Jews to go into the loan business, and then they blame the Jews for being in the loan business. And finally, although not cited in the text, I think the continued focus on reason in philosophy will, in the long run, prove to be a very important factor in modernity. As thinkers, which we will see in a few weeks, begin to ask the question, do all people reason equally? And if a Jew can reason like a non-Jew, then you have to ask the question, is a Jew educable? And then after that, you can say, well, if a Jew is educable, then is it possible for a Jew to be a citizen? And that is, of course, a very radical question from the point of view of feudalism, in which Jews are viewed as a permanent class, and essentially a permanent criminal class in society. Now, turning briefly to the Spanish Inquisition. The Inquisition has deep roots in Christianity, particularly in the Iberian experience. And when I say Iberia, I mean Spain and Portugal, and of course is tied to the Christian Reconquista, the Christian reconquest of Spain, and certain ideas that Spain needed to be purified of non-Christian elements. It is part of this story of purification that we hatch a concept not only central to the Inquisition, but central, according to historians of race, to the whole rise of racism in the modern period, particularly the kind of racism in the 19th century that will in turn give rise to Nazi theory. And this doctrine is called purity of blood. It's a topic that will need more discussion in our group as we look into the form. Purity of blood deeply challenges the Christian Catholic belief that a Jew can be saved by conversion. In the medieval world, one answer to anti-Semitism was conversion. If a Jew converts to the church, then a Jew is no longer unsaved and a sinner nor a member of a criminal class, and the soul has been salvaged. But the ideas of purity of blood, there is no possible way of purifying impure blood. Blood is blood, and it's permanently stained, and that obviously has all types of very costly ramifications. The beginning of the end in Spain takes place in 1391, a horrific year in Jewish history, followed by the great disputations that first start in Tortosa in the year 1413, intensified in following years by the Catholic monarchs and in cooperation with the Pope. You have a full-bred Inquisition by the year 1481, with a particular interest in identifying and expunging Jews and former Jews who are secretly practicing their Judaism. The chief inquisitor was a priest by the name of Thomas de Torquemada, and he is responsible for the destruction of the Iberian Jewish community, exiled from Spain in 1492 and exiled from Portugal in 1496. The majority fled by boat. In northwest Spain, there was an overland site taking Jews into southwest France, the area called Bordeaux, which becomes a significant site for Sephardi Jewish life to develop in France, and it has a very different dynamic than Jewish life in the eastern regions of France along the German border, particularly the areas called Alsace-Lorraine. One of the important features of the expulsion that we need to keep in mind is among the Jews who fled were the Marranos, Jews who had converted out in public but privately were keeping their Judaism, also referred to as conversos, and once they came to the outside society, particularly in Holland and other places, sought to return to Judaism. The problem is they had been on the outside, and now they were coming back on the inside. They couldn't forget their experience, and in many ways these conversos bring much of the outside world into Judaism. There were tragic cases Da Costa and others that we'll talk about, and very challenging situations such as Spinoza and his family, who were on the outside and came back in and found the process of reintegration into Judaism to be highly problematic. In many ways, they are the first modern Jews living a cosmopolitan European way of life outside of Judaism, and then trying to combine that way of life with what occurs in the Jewish community. The exiles from Spain go literally all over the world in the sense that they are among those who found the Jewish communities of the Western Hemisphere. Once permission is established, you will find them in England, certainly in Holland. The majority simply move in a beeline east, expanding the Jewish communities of North Africa, Italy, and ultimately the Ottoman Empire. At the same time, there is a significant growth in the Polish-Lithuanian Jewish community, a community that had been seeded, had been planted back in the 14th century by the Polish monarchy, which had invited Jews to leave Germany and help develop the Polish and then the combined Polish-Lithuanian economy. And after the Spanish Inquisition, among the Sephardim, you have this transplanting of Jews into the Ottoman Empire. So that with the destruction of Iberian Jewish community, you get the rise of two new empire settings for Jewish history for the next several centuries, with Poland, Lithuania in the north being Ashkenazi culture, and the Ottoman Empire in the south absorbing the Sephardi immigrants, who then overlay the original Jewish population who was there, often referred to as Edot HaMizrach, the eastern congregations. In the Ottoman Empire, and we're not going to go too deeply into this at this point, you get the development of several major Jewish communities. There was even an attempt to create a Jewish industrial center in the land of Israel, inside of the Ottoman Empire in Tiberias. It did not go the way they wanted. However, in the nearby town of Tzvat, referred to as Safed in English, in the English-speaking world, you do see the development of a major center of Kabbalah, of Jewish mysticism, and from Tzvat and from displaced Spain, Kabbalah will then penetrate into the Polish-Lithuanian community and the German community and others. Interestingly, today, from a cultural point of view, Kabbalah is making a big comeback. There's certain elements of the Tzvat experience which have been consistent. For example, opening songs for Shabbat in the evening, such as Shalom Aleichem and L'cha Dodi, are all based on the writings of the mystics of Tzvat, beginning in the 16th century. En route to the Ottoman Empire, Jews also go to Italy, the peninsula, in the middle, literally the middle of the Mediterranean world, and Jews are arriving in Italy at a peak moment in terms of Italian cultural history. On the one hand, you have old lines of development, which will lead to the creation of the ghetto in Venice, and the quarantining of Jews, and actually a new vocabulary still with us today in terms of a forced quarantine of the Jewish community into a ghetto, actually an island in the Italian city of Venice. You have the negative effects of the Reformation in a Catholic land like Italy, giving rise to a counter-Reformation, leading to all types of illiberal policies toward the Jews. On the other hand, Italy of this period is a time of tremendous artistic and intellectual development, and we see that in the Jewish community of Italy. where you have a famous Jewish Phoenician rabbi by the name of Leon Modena, who is able to live a kind of Renaissance lifestyle. It's said that he had actually created a signature that could be read in Hebrew or in Italian, and poetry that could be read in either language simultaneously. You have intellectual activity, such as of the work of somebody like a Shlomo Ibn Verga, who writes Shevet Yehuda, which is the beginning of a modern approach to Jewish history, not the sacred history, but rather a critical history following the tenets of modernity. Also, Samuel Usk writing The Consolation for the Tribulations of Israel, again a forerunner of critical history writing, a trend which spreads to Prague in the work of David Gans. In the area of critical thought, even in the approach of the Talmud, you have Azaria Darasi. You also have a member of the Darasi family, Solomon Darasi, who writes Jewish music with Hebrew text in the style of the Renaissance. Lastly, I just want to mention, simultaneously, just to the north in German lands, you have also a two-way dynamic. On the one hand, Christian humanism, in which you have scholars such as Johannes Reuchlin, who become highly interested in a positive way in Hebrew writing, and at the same time, the Protestant Reformation, led by Martin Luther, which is a back to the Bible movement that emphasizes the vernacular as opposed to Latin, which will have all types of effects on the Jews in subsequent times. Luther had hoped to convert the Jews. That, of course, didn't happen, and he turned against the Jews, even urging the burning of synagogues. Quite tragically, in Nazi Germany, on the day after Kristallnacht, many Lutheran pastors got up in their pulpits and read Luther's passages on burning the synagogues. From a more positive point of view, Protestantism showed how wide the spectrum of religious observance could be in one place. In this case, West Europe particularly, Germany, France, Switzerland, England, and in a certain way, it is foreshadowing in a big way the whole spectrum of Jewish, quote, denominations, which to a certain extent structurally are comparable to the Protestant Reformation. So that's a little bit, about 30 minutes worth, on where we are headed. Please read the textbook up to page 203. Start looking at the work in terms of what you will be writing. There's some excellent bibliography suggested on page 203. I look forward to reading your comments online, and I wish everybody a good week. Take care, and I'll be taping again for next week's session. Take care.